Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Play, Pause, Rewind, our 62nd time doing this. Sorry we're a week late on this episode. We had some real life stuff going on separately, and we weren't able to get together to record, but we're back. And right off the top, we'll just say next episode is just going to be next week on The Flash, and we'll be back on our normal schedule. But that aside, Niles, how have you been the last 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's a long time. Been good. Went to Iowa and back to see some family, which is always nice. Getting out there, it's just soaking in the nostalgia from my youth out there. It's always a fun time, especially during the summer. And it's just been a busy time. Otherwise, I'm rooting for the Nuggets in the playoffs tonight, or I guess the finals. This
this
could
the
be
final
the final
game?
game.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
yeah. This could be if they win tonight.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, gotta support the Denver Nuggets because we live in Denver.
Yeah, the listeners will know who won when they listen to this.
Yeah, and then they can trace back and say, "Oh yes, Niles is a fan of the Nuggets."
Who do you think will win? You've been watching the series. Who's going to win?
No, I've not been. Been watching. I'm one of those bandwagon fans. But I've always lived in Denver, so just got to root for the home team. But yeah, I think the Nuggets got a 3-1 game lead right now. So
okay.
I think they're gonna win it. Just how it's been going. But sports aside, how are you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Been pretty busy the last few weeks, but exciting personal update. I have a job now. So my 6 months of unemployment is coming to an end. Hooray.
Yes.
God. But
there was much rejoicing.
Yes, there was much rejoicing. And that's mostly it for me, but I think both of us would like to say happy Pride Month to our LGBT plus fans. Hope it's great and fun. Sorry, there are some fucking freaks making it scary and unsafe for you guys, but both of us appreciate you guys and love you. So,
yes,
have a great month. Happy Pride.
No, I love the just the LGBTQ plus community. I've talked about it before on this show. I love Drag Race. It's so fun to watch. So I just love the creativity that community offers to the world and the inspiration that you all offer as well. So happy Pride Month.
Yes.
And yes, it's a great time to be alive.
Yes, it is. And other good news, Pride Month is good news. The backlash to it is not, but this is good news. SAG-AFTRA, the union that actors are a part of, voted to authorize a strike. And of the 47.69% of eligible voting members, that's the percentage of people that voted. Of those people, 97.91% of them voted yes to authorize the strike. That is insane. And
okay.
Yeah, sorry. Half of the eligible members voted. Of those half, almost all of them said yes. And important note, this does not mean they're on strike. This gives authorization for their negotiating committee to negotiate with the AMPTP, which is like a collection of studios being represented by one body, basically. But this is really good. And if they do go on strike and the WGA is on strike, that puts a lot more coal on the fire under studios' feet. And that is good. But we are not here to talk about non-specific movie review things on this show. We are here to talk about a movie. And I think hopefully most of you have seen this movie by now. We're talking about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse this week. Let me write that. And very exciting. This is a sequel to 2018 Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And this film once again follows Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy, and Peter B. Parker as they find themselves interacting with this organization of spider people from across the multiverse, led by Spider-Man 2099 Miguel O'Hara. The film is directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson, written by Phil Lord, Chris Miller, and Dave Callahan, and stars Shameik Moore, Haley Steinfeld, Jake Johnson, Oscar Isaac, Brian Tyree Henry, Luna Lauren Velez, and Jason Schwartzman, Daniel Kaluuya, Issa Rae, and many, many more people. It's a multiverse film. There are a lot of characters. We're we're gonna do non-spoilers for a little bit and then spoilers. But Niles, what were your initial spoiler-free thoughts on the film?
I mean, Across the Spider-Verse, amazing.
Yes.
I so much enjoyed this movie. The art style, like far and away, is like the best part of this movie, or the best part of it. For me,
Yeah.
I just love how the way it looks, and I feel like that they visually, when you compare it to the first one, which I don't think we reviewed on this podcast, but we should as a
predates our
rewind
show.
maybe one day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rewind,
that would
we'll
be
do
fun. But
maybe leading
yeah,
up to the next one, we'll do a rewind on it.
yeah,
fun.
that would actually be really good. But yeah, I think visually this is on par or even better than the original one in terms of like the visual aesthetic, and the narrative is, I think, very strong as well. We get some good character development for Gwen Stacy and Miles Morales. We get a good, mix of characters in there, built on the momentum of the first one. Like, I honestly really do not have many bad things to say about this film. Like, I have like one or two complaints, and they're just small little things that only apply to me.
Yeah.
It's not like oh, the movie's wrong, it needs to be fixed. Like, it's no small little nitpicky things for me. But Dylan, what about you? What are your initial thoughts?
I agree. I think this is an absolutely stunning film that builds on both the technical and narrative foundations laid by the first one in really satisfying ways, I would say. And you mentioned the art. I would say the animation work alone is worth the price of admission. Like, even if everything else about the movie was complete dog shit, which it isn't, it's amazing. But even if that it were, that would be worth it. Like, every world they travel to has its own art style, and not a single one of them disappoints. Gwen's universe especially was just like really beautiful to look at, and was watercolor inspired. Haley Steinfeld also mentioned in an interview that the art of Gwen's world is meant to behave like a mood ring, where the world around Gwen will change color based on her emotions in the scene. And it's unreal. Like, this movie is insane.
Yeah, it's really like a masterclass in animation. And yeah, I just love her aesthetic too. Like, when the movie starts, we won't go very far into spoilers yet, but when the movie starts, she's in band practice, and then when she leaves the auditorium, the animation just blends really well in this transition into like just her walking down the street and then walking into a subway. Like, there's no like entrance or egress or anything like that. It's just like, here it is, and it's just blending so seamlessly, so you can kind of feel what she's feeling, like how everything's just kind of blurring together. Like, it's very artistic in the application of how it like moves around the world and just blends these different things together. And I feel like, yeah, the use of color, I feel like every kind of world has its own special use of the color.
Like, color and style too.
Yeah, because I agree that, yeah, with that quote from Haley Steinfeld, that yeah, it does feel like a mood ring in her universe. But I feel like you can see some of those elements in those other universes, like in Miles's world. At least from the first one, I remember very clearly, like, when he's having like this, it's not in this movie, it's when it's in the first one, where he's meeting the original Spider-Man. His color in the background shifts from, like, I think it's like purple and green, like the colors of the Prowler, to the colors of Spider-Man when they're having this interaction. And it's like, oh, so that's how they're using it in his world. So like, yeah, I think the use of color across the board is excellent.
Yes, it's really, and the Moonbatten sequence was a really great standout as well. We might talk about that sequence more in spoilers. It's a very big plot heavy section of the film, but everything, it's crazy because there's so many different art styles in the movie, and they're on screen together at the same time pretty often. But it doesn't feel jarring at any point in time. It all kind of works in this massive collage of a film that they've put together. And in addition to that, the soundtrack, extraordinary. Like, that opening scene with Gwen in band practice and the music that's playing there too. I knew within maybe 40 seconds of starting this movie, I'm sitting back like, oh, this is something special. The first one was as well, but this is on another level technically. Like, they have made something truly incredible that pushes the art form of animation and just film more broadly forward in like crazy ways. Daniel Pemberton was the composer, really outdid himself here. And that opening track of when Gwen suits up and goes out to do what she's got to do at the beginning, like that has been stuck playing in my head since I saw the movie 2 weeks ago.
Wow, resonated with you really strong there. Well, yeah, I think after I watched this movie, I remember leaving the theater and just thinking that just it feels like so much love and passion went into this movie, because it feels like this movie took like 5 years to like put together, and it didn't. It took like a few years, if that. Like, it was very like the production timeline was
well, it was quicker. 5 years, but they probably weren't working out the whole time.
Sure, but I think that they were also probably working a little bit on the sequel too. Just
I think that's true.
That there's probably like about a year gap between this one and the next one, I think.
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit, but it's because Haley Steinfeld was asked if she'd started recording dialogue for it yet, and she said no. And either the question was poorly phrased, or she didn't understand it, or that movie's not coming out next year.
Yeah, maybe not.
Because if she hasn't started recording voice for that, that's not happening in 9 months.
Yeah, that's going to take some time. But yeah, I mean, just the amount of like detail that went into this, like even those intro logos of just like the production companies, like it's got the visual aesthetic to it applied. Like it's like, oh, you put a lot of work into all these little frames that are going on here, and you thought through the music, you thought through the jokes, you thought through the writing. Like everything feels like they spent hours and hours and hours thinking about it, perfecting it, and it really does come across that way. So
and just everyone in the voice cast is once again crushing it here. They were great in the first movie. We get a lot of new additions in this one. I think everybody is great. I think the Spot is really interesting, both in terms of his origin and in terms of his goals. We'll talk about that more in spoilers, and just lots of fun spider people. It is a Spider-Verse multiverse movie, so you get a lot of variations on the character, and I thought they were all pretty funny and done in a way that's not drawing focus away from what matters. It's all just flair and fun. It's not drawing the focus away from the main characters and their drama, that we're always centered where we need to be.
I would agree. Yes. And I think they did a really good job on the jokes and the narrative. Like, I think the humor all the way through was really funny. I was definitely laughing pretty obnoxiously at some things, and some small little Easter eggs that are thrown on screen. It's like some of those spider people, when they get into the main place, it's like, oh my gosh, I need to look at that one.
Yeah.
Like it just kind of bounces around, but like it doesn't, like you were saying, it doesn't take you out of the narrative too much or the emotional core of the movie. I think it complements what's going on screen.
Yeah, and Spider-Punk, we'll talk about more in spoilers, but definitely a standout character. And just because a lot of people didn't seem to know this, and a lot of audience members are kind of getting pissed off in the theater, you should know before going in, this is part 1 of 2. This is a 2-part story, and it has a cliffhanger ending. That's like a tiny bit of a spoiler, but not really. But you should know so you don't get upset. I'm of the opinion that the movie feels complete regardless of that. But I cannot explain more about what I mean in the non-spoiler section. So,
yeah. I didn't expect a cliffhanger ending. I didn't realize it was going to be split up into 2. So by the end of the movie, I was starting to be like, okay, how are they going to wrap this up? Like, the clock's ticking here.
Did you feel like you needed more though, or were you kind of satisfied with what you got?
No, I was very satisfied with what we got. Like, okay, especially because like without getting too far into spoilers, but the emotional buildup of the reveal at the end. I think it just really works well as a great cliffhanger to the story, because I do want to see what happens next, and I still feel all the emotional tension and the tension of the plot and everything that's coming up. Like it worked for me, I would say, but I can understand how some people might have not liked it as much.
Yes, and I don't personally feel this way, but I have seen some people say it, and I can understand how people would think this, that some of the scenes early on go on a little bit long, and they could be cut or trimmed down a bit for time, because we spend a lot of time on like personal family stuff. I think all of that is going to be. I think it's incredibly important for this movie, but I think it's going to be even more important in part 3. And again, can't say why here, but it's I do not think a single minute of this movie was wasted or
Hmm.
lingered too long. And we'll see. But I think to sum up my thoughts on this film, I consider myself a decently creative person overall, but there are choices being made here that I would not even think to think about. Like it's so
Hmm.
creatively beyond anything that my tiny brain could muster that it's just it's something you watch and you're like, how did someone make this?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, just like you said, they peppered in so many little Easter eggs,
Hmm.
so many references to Spider-Man, and I think that in and of itself is amazing. But yeah, then you add on the art style, you add on the soundtrack, you add on the narrative, and you take into consideration what happened in the first one and
Yeah.
how that one relates to this movie. Like it's phenomenal.
Hmm.
And I think, yeah, when I think back to seeing Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire for the first time in theaters, I don't think my little child's brain would have comprehended where we would be today with this kind of masterpiece.
Yeah. And it's too, it's like this is the sequel to what a lot of people consider one of the best films in the genre. Into the
Hmm.
Spider-Verse, I think came out of nowhere for a lot of people, myself included, and is one of the best Spider-Man films. And somehow this lives up to the expectation of that, and in a lot of ways even exceeds it. But I kind of want to get into details. Do you want to jump in and do
Let's
spoilers?
do it. Let's get into
Oh,
spoilers. So yeah, as the film progresses, the plot centers around the Spider Society that Gwen has become a part
mm-hmm.
of, and it's led by Miguel O'Hara. And how they're tasked they're tasked with preserving the canon across the multiverse, as they
Yes.
believe that these events not happening will lead to destruction of entire realities. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of gets what was that term? Oh, I can't remember.
Anomaly.
The not anomaly. It was like in Loki or something like that. I can't remember what it was
Oh.
called, but it would be like when the universe kind of collapses in on itself,
Oh
or
yeah,
like
yeah. The
splinters off.
It's like the
Um,
aberrations, or no, not aberrations, whatever they're called.
I can't remember, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, this is a really cool movie. As the plot goes along, we get to meet a lot of cool spider people.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we get some good introduction with Gwen and Miles, but then once they go to the spider universe, or to like the wherever it is, the HQ,
Hmm.
we get to meet a lot of people. Who are some of your favorites, Dylan?
Yeah. So I put down a couple of my favorite ones. The Lego Spider-Man I thought was just very funny. And it was
Yeah.
that section was actually so some 14-year-old kid animated with Legos the trailer for this movie. And the team, I guess, saw it and he animated the Lego Spider-Man part of this movie. Yeah.
Wow, that is so
Yeah,
cool.
it's incredible. But I love the Lego one just because it's cute, but also at the end when he like calls and he reports to Miguel. I just love Oscar Isaac's delivery. It's like, thanks, Peter, you're one of our best. And just,
Yeah. we
I,
value you so much.
I thought it was so funny. And then in the society, you like a bunch of them pull up together, and one of them's a car, and it's named Peter Parked Car. Uh, I thought that was a good joke, and
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love this type of stuff too because that joke is on screen for like a third of a second and it's gone. And it's just something that more and more people will pick up on. It every single frame has like so much imagery that is so thoughtful that even
Hmm.
10 viewings from now you'll be watching it's like, oh my god, I never noticed that before. But I also loved the super edgy 90s Ben Riley. And Ben Riley, as I understand it, is from the Clone Saga in Spider-Man. He was a clone of Peter Parker who becomes Spider-Man for a little while. But I love at the end of the movie they're playing on the idea that in the 90s like comics were trying to be super edgy and for adults, and it just
Hmm.
comes off as like embarrassing if you read it. And he was kind of doing that at the end where he's like over communicating all this. It's like something over there, gotta go in the alley. Now I'm in the alley. Now I'm
And I'm
looking
looking over
around.
here.
Perfect pose. It's so good. What about you?
Yeah,
What were some of
those are
your
some good
favorites?
ones. I all of them. I loved all of them, but
Yeah.
there were some great ones. Again, when we were in the, like we were just saying, very split second jokes, really quick coming at you. Spider Rex, the T-Rex Spider-Man.
Hmm.
They're just kind of like escaping and they're like, what's next? We have no
It's like this
idea.
can't get any weirder.
And it's a literal dinosaur running along. I loved that. But I have to say Spider Cat, obviously, because I love those kinds of little
Yeah.
jokes about cats. And just to imagine a cat with that kind of responsibility and power, it's it's not realistic, but I love it.
With great cat power comes great cat responsibility.
I think I'll go take a nap in a sunbeam and I'll see if I can stop some crime later. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and then
um,
Spider Punk, of course, but
Spider Punk, of course.
he's more of a character than I think the rest of them are, honestly.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
he's more well defined, and I loved his aesthetic, and we'll talk
Mhm.
about him a little bit more later. I also loved the cowboy Spider-Man, and I loved how the horse had to wear a mask too.
I love that. It's such a great like anti joke, almost like why is her face
Yeah,
covered? It's like to hide her face.
so no one recognizes her, but it's a horse. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And then I just love also that we got, like we were saying, in the mix of live action and or yeah, there, we didn't say that yet, but live action mixed with these other art forms
Uh-huh.
and everything like that. So we got Donald Glover imprisoned as the Prowler,
Hmm.
and I just thought it was great to see him in this movie, just because, from my understanding, he was the inspiration for the Miles Morales
Yes.
character. So
From yeah, he's been campaigning for it. He wanted to play Spider-Man at one point. He dresses up as Spider-Man in Community, I think.
it's
I
one
think that
scene he's wearing a
yeah.
Spider-Man shirt,
Mhm.
yeah. But
He
he's
also plays the character who becomes the Prowler in Spider-Man Homecoming, the first Tom
right,
Holland movie, and hints
right.
at the existence of Miles Morales in the MCU. So that was a surprise. That was one of the biggest cameo surprises for me, was Donald Glover.
Yeah, I loved seeing him in there. Like and he had some good he had a good joke in there too of like, it's rude to stare. Like
Yeah.
that was nice.
But it
But I
it is
think
crazy that this movie integrated live action characters. He's probably the main one, but we see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's Uncle Ben. I can't remember if we see Tobey Maguire, but it's like it does. And there's a scene where the Spot goes into the Venom universe and
yeah.
interacts with the store clerk from the Venom universe. And
Oh,
it
that's where she was from. Oh, I thought it
Yes,
was just
I
some
have
random
not
store
seen the
clerk.
Venom movies, but I've seen a lot of Twitter clips about Mrs. Chen for whatever reason. And that's why she's like not weirded out by this, because she just interacts with Venom. But and it
That makes
wasn't
more sense.
jarring to me. I felt like
Yeah.
the film's language was such that it uh suited it well enough. I don't think it should be. I don't know how much screen time I would like live action characters to have in the next one, but I think, cameos here and there worked fine.
Yeah. They shouldn't take up the bulk, obviously. And
Mhm.
I think one of my few complaints with this movie is like the introduction of some of these spider people, and it's a pro and a con because, yeah, like you said, the more times I'm going to watch this movie, the more stuff I'm going to pick
Mhm.
up, and I can pause it at home to read some of these captions that come on screen. But I just felt like when they entered the Spider Verse HQ and they're meeting all these
Mhm.
people, it's just boom, 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 boom. You're meeting all these different characters, and every kind of like little introduction, you get this, or not all of them, but some of them, you get this little comic book font text
Yeah.
box at the bottom of the screen, kind of detailing, here's the universe they're from, here's who they are, and then it's gone really
Mhm.
quickly. And I just feel like the movie could have lingered on those moments just maybe a little bit longer and allowed me to read it, because I don't read as fast as some other people, but
Mhm.
that's just me. So, but I can just pause it at home now whenever it
Yeah,
comes out. So,
exactly. You can see, and my only worry with that would be it might become a No Way Home situation where apparently if you rewatch that movie at home, there are a lot of like hold for applause moments with the Andrew Garfield and
sure.
Tobey Maguire movies or
Hmm.
characters. So I could see I kind of prefer it this way where like it is blink and you'll miss it, but you're gonna watch it again and you'll catch it the next time. Because
Yep.
I just am glad that in terms of scope of the universe, this is a very large story. But in terms of what's actually going on, it's a pretty small scale, intimate story. And it really does manage to keep the focus on Miles and Gwen specifically the whole time.
Yeah.
And yeah, but you put a note here, and I think it's worth talking about that. It poses an interesting question about trauma in the superhero genre, because basically the central conflict of the back half of the movie is Miguel O'Hara, who is in charge of this whole thing. Uh, it talks about the canon events. You know, Miles saves this police captain who was not supposed to be saved if Miles wasn't there, and there are these certain events that are present in every Spider's life, and the death of a police captain close to you, and I guess the death of your uncle are two of those things. And if you break too many canon events, your universe will crumble in on itself and break apart. And
Yeah.
we can talk. We'll talk about more about that element of it in a second. But like, is that trauma even necessary to become a hero like Spider-Man, or what? You know, if not that, what are the necessities to be a Spider-Man? You know.
Yeah, it is a very interesting question because it's like, what are the defining qualities of a hero or Spider-Man, or what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man? Like,
Mhm.
is it the trauma? Is it the responsibility? Is it like, do you need the trauma to understand the gravity of your situation? Do you
Mhm.
need the loss to, you know, understand that you need to protect others and you need to use this power for good? Um, and I mean, I think it's applicable to like just about every superhero too. But
Yeah.
I think it's a good question about heroism too.
Mhm.
Anyone can really be a hero and stand up for the right things. It doesn't. You don't necessarily need to have um, watched your uncle die from a gunshot to realize, oh, I need to tackle the gunman the next time that he's running down the street, or I need to stop
Right.
that person who just stole that purse from that old woman. It's like
Mhm.
everyone can have these micro moments, I think, in their life where they can stand up and realize that they can make a difference. And not all of it has to be stopping a crime or preventing a crime or anything like
Mhm.
that. It could just be, well, I need to stand up on the bus to let someone else sit down right now because they need it more than I do. Like
Mhm.
small little micro moments like that. And that's not even really heroism. That's just
It's just being
doing the
nice,
right thing.
but
Yeah.
yeah, and I would argue that to answer the question, do you need these like traumatic events to be a hero like Spider-Man or something? I would say no. And no on the one hand, because you can just Miles has been being heroic the whole time, even before his Uncle
Hmm.
Aaron dies in the first movie, which is his Uncle Ben equivalent. You know, he was he got his powers and he was trying to do the right thing right away and trying to be a hero from there. But also, I would say traumatic events happen organically in everybody's lives, and it begs the question of when you are operating on a scale of someone like Miguel O'Hara in this movie, is that even heroism anymore? Because it's gone from these traumatic events happened to me and they've defined who I am as a person, to these traumatic events have been deemed necessary and we now must ensure that they continue to happen to future people. um and then at that point you're causing harm. Like,
Hmm.
you can argue the ends justify the means, but like the Indian Spider-Man in this, like, he's already crushing it as Spider-Man. Like, what is the death of that captain gonna do to make him a better hero? Like, how is the canon, like, what is the canon necessarily, and why is it so important? And
Hmm.
this ties into you mentioned it here about Miles, the toxicity around Miles in just
Yes.
in his own universe as a teenager being black in America, but also in the real world. Miguel O'Hara's writing in this was meant to sort of harken back to the real world racist toxicity towards the creation of Miles Morales as Spider-Man initially in
Mm.
the comics, because a lot of people pushed back against him initially because it's like Peter Parker's Spider-Man, like this, and they always mask it in some other thing. They don't out some of them outright say, but they
Hmm.
won't outright say it's like, and Miguel, I don't think is meant to be racist here necessarily, but he is meant to harken back to that, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
um yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think it just makes me think of this quote from Stan Lee too, or it's not really a quote. It's just like something that he said, and I'm going to butcher the quote, so
It's
don't
that
quote me on it.
interview clip, right?
Yeah, it was
It
it was
was
an
going
interview
around
clip or
on it was going
something,
around
but yeah,
online this week.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but one of the great things that he said about the Spider-Man character design was that it
Mhm.
covers his entire body.
Yes.
So, unlike someone else like Batman, where you can see part of his face
Hmm.
or part of his body, with Spider-Man, you have no idea who the person underneath is, what the complexion of their skin is, what their gender identity is,
Hmm.
you know. Uh, so it could really be anyone under
Yes.
there. And that's what makes him such a great superhero, is because anyone can see themselves in that character. They're like,
Hmm.
I could be under that mask. That could be me. Like,
That's a big part
so.
of the first movie too. Anyone can wear the mask. I think that's the last line of Into the Spider-Verse is
Mhm.
anyone can wear the
Yeah.
mask. And I'm glad you mentioned that quote from Stanley. I was actually just watching that this morning. It came across my feed. And he says it wasn't even done on purpose. It was an accident, but then he says in retrospect it's the best thing we did. And I think that's so
Hmm.
cool. Like Stanley kind of he did some shitty things in his younger years, but he was a cool dude ultimately, and at the end he was awesome. But he's right. Like and
Yeah.
you can anyone can see themselves in Spider-Man when he's in the
Yes.
costume. Like when he's outside of the costume, he's Peter Parker obviously, and now Miles Morales too. But I
Yeah.
am seeing people also say that like some people with younger kids now or people who are like preteens and below, like to them Miles Morales is Spider-Man and Peter Parker
Oh,
is
yeah.
like the old guy. Like he's still cool, he's Peter Parker, but like Miles has kind of is at least on par in terms of popularity with Peter Parker, which is
Mm.
I think the only instance of that happening in these comic characters, you know, at least in recent years.
Yeah. Yeah. Where the
But
successor kind of takes over the
mhm.
the publicity of the
Right.
one that was in front of them. Yeah.
And yeah, since we were talking about Miguel, I wanna just jump over to his canon theory real quick and talk about because we were talking about is the trauma
Sure.
necessary, but like is Miguel's theory here, does it even hold any water? I want to talk about like so let's just put aside for a second, is he right to be pursuing this like basically mass death of police
Hmm.
captains across the
Yeah.
Spider-Verse?
Yeah.
Let's put that aside, but it's like it seems like he has personal experience that has brought him to believe in this thing, right? And the film even has a character that we are meant to trust, Peter B. Parker, sort of confirm what Miguel says. Like we see a flashback and he's there and he kind of nods in agreement. And but I think the canon theory is kind of fucking nonsense because Miguel talks about his backstory and he's like, I found a universe where my family was alive, but that version of me died. So I like kind of Rick and Morty'd it and went over and took his place, and then everything collapsed.
Hmm.
It's like that doesn't have anything to do with anything in the canon that he's talking about protecting. So I'm like, does this even connect at all to the mission here? And maybe, and I think the film itself is kind of saying not really because Captain Stacy, Gwen's dad, quits. And so now he's no longer a police captain. So he's no longer going to die to protect the canon and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So,
Hmm.
but I do, you know, I don't know if I think Miguel believes it for the record. I think he has it in his head that he has to do this, but I don't think he's right. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's more underneath the surface because we did see what happened in Mubatten,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, the police chief doesn't die, and then it opens up, and then this whole sinkhole thing forms in
Mm-hmm.
the city, and they're like, "What are we gonna do about that? We don't
Yeah.
know." And then we don't get a clear answer. I think that they contained it, but it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter because that did look pretty real to me. But I don't think that the event that caused it was the saving of the policeman. Maybe it
Mm-hmm.
was, maybe it wasn't, but I think that there's something else kind of going underneath the
I agree.
surface where it's not. I think ultimately, now that I'm kind of talking about this, I feel like it is kind of has something to do with the spot.
Yeah. Well, because
And
the
maybe that's
hole
just
looks like his holes, and
exactly,
then
yeah.
he just set off the collider, which is the same thing that was used to bridge the multiverse in the last movie. And it looks like buildings are bleeding through the hole, just like they did in the last movie. So I think
Hmm.
that crisis has more to do with what you're saying, the spot, than it does any canon event or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think the canon, the whole thing, I mean, ultimately, I think it's a kind of a red herring of
mhm.
kind of like we were just talking about, like just because. something happened historically to someone else doesn't mean that it has to happen to you. You know, even if you're kind of like a carbon copy of them, you're following in their footsteps, just because it happened on TV in a sitcom doesn't mean it's going to happen to me. You know, like
Right.
the world's full of possibilities, and maybe the multiverse rules are different.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? And I mean, there's all this. I'm sure that they might find. Well, I'm not sure, but I feel like that they might find some way to try and connect it to the
Mm-hmm.
other multiverse breaking moments, like in Homecoming, or not
Or far
Far
from
From
home.
Home,
Wait. Yeah.
whichever one
Yeah.
it was.
They're all
Um,
home themed. I
and then
forget.
Loki, you know, and
Yeah.
so maybe there's some possibility there if they're trying to tie it all together,
It
but
is
that might
mentioned
be
in
too of a
this
stretch.
movie that
Yeah,
because
that's right.
and I hope that's it. I hope that's all we get of MCU,
Me too.
honestly.
Me too.
Maybe you can see Tom Holland in a little like panel or something. But no hate for the MCU. I like it a lot, but I like this being its own thing a little bit.
Hmm.
Um and like I said, for the record, I do think Miguel fully believes this. I don't think he's lying and is the secret villain of the trilogy. Although he could be, that's a possibility. Like the way they're writing his character, it could very well be that he's been like intentionally deceiving everybody and he's the ultimate bad guy. But I don't think that's the case. But, remains to be seen. Um
Yes, very
and
true.
yeah, let's see here. But and on that note, the movie is a great example for writing the difference between an antagonist and a villain. Spot is the film's villain. Miguel, though, is the primary antagonist for the movie. And the difference
Hmm.
between the two is the villain of a story is usually like the one who is in the moral wrong, right? But the antagonist is more about structure. They are the character who is opposed to the goals of the protagonist. Doesn't necessarily have anything to do with morality, right? Like the government agents in The Wolf of Wall Street are the antagonists of that movie, but Jordan Belfort, our protagonist, is more so the villain, right?
Hmm.
And
Okay.
I don't think Miguel is evil. I just think he's an asshole who's sort of embodying that toxic fan thing about like this is how Spider-Man is supposed to be. You have to be
Yeah.
like this. It's like I think he can, grow out of that though. I think he's having a moment and
Yeah.
he'll come
Well,
through.
I think there's a control element to it too,
Mm,
you know. I think that's kind of the main draw for a lot of these characters of coming into this Spider-Verse and part joining forces with other people, is because they've lost so much,
mhm,
and they want to regain some sense of control over their lives and the universe. And they're all just their friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but
mhm.
they all want to contribute more and more and more and keep things all together. And I think, yeah, ultimately for Miguel, I think it is about his own need for control, after losing. Well, I don't even really remember his full backstory, but I just know that he lost that family that
Yeah.
he basically Rick and Morty'd his way into.
Yeah,
Uh,
he kind of did what Kingpin was trying to do in the first movie. Get a replacement family from another dimension. That's
mhm. So he
so
he succeeded
yeah,
there
for a
for
bit.
a second,
Yeah.
for a little bit.
Yes, but let's talk about the Spot a little bit, the villain. I think he's
Yes.
really fun. He's very funny, voiced by Jason Schwartzman, and I loved it his origin. And I don't know if you remember this from the first movie, but he is a scientist who worked at Kingpin's lab, and he when Peter and Miles are escaping that lab in the first movie, Miles just
Hmm.
throws a bagel back at scientists
Oh
chasing them
yeah.
out, and it hits a guy in the head, and it just says bagel, and that's him.
Bagel.
Because he
That's the guy.
and then he gets caught in the collider at the end of that movie, and that's what gives him the Spot powers. But he thinks he's Miles's nemesis because Miles like clocked him with a bagel on accident in the first movie. And I love when Miles' his dad are like fighting him at the beginning. He's like, "You created me." It's like, "Why'd you create this guy, Spider-Man?" It's like, "I didn't. I don't know what this is."
I didn't mean to. It was an accident.
Like the Spot has a parasocial relationship with Spider-Man.
Yeah. 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 He's like, it's like, yeah, he's enamored with him because he's a celebrity, and then he meets him. He's like, "Who are you?" Yeah, I really like this villain because it's one that Miles created incidentally,
Hmm.
and it's one that we didn't really see him create. It was just kind of, okay, well, let's put him in there. So it kind of wraps it together that way with the first movie, and
Mhm.
it feels like what was his name, Syndrome from
Oh, The
The Incredibles,
Incredibles. Yeah.
where it's just like, oh, he's like kind of this little joke of a sidekick character, and
Mhm.
Mr. Incredible doesn't want it to do anything with him, and then 20 years later he comes back and he's just like unhinged, and
Yeah.
he's gonna like, he just like decimates the
He's
Incredible
kind
family
yeah,
like
and
really quickly.
he's kind of like a Mysterio in Spider-Man Far From Home too, where he's like
Mhm.
his whole backstory is that he got mad at Tony Stark for naming his life's work Barf, and then he
Yeah.
becomes a villain. It's like that, that's a type of villain I'm enjoying more and more. It's like incidentally created by the hero, not like thinking about their actions in that way. Um,
It's just spiteful people who are
yeah, yeah.
angry that they're kind of perceived as a joke or something.
Hmm.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of thought of the Spot too, because I hadn't heard of him before, so I did a little bit of research when I got
Hmm.
home, and he's one of those lesser
Yeah.
villains from Spider-Man that in the comics, from my understanding, he is very much a joke, and it feels like the Suicide Squad in a way where James Gunn brought
Hmm.
these characters like Polka Dot Man out
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
grave, and it's like, you're a ridiculous, stupid character who's just outright silly. Let's turn you into a real character
Hmm.
here, like with
Right.
some real depth and stuff. And I think that's what they did with the Spot here as time went on, because
Hmm.
he did kind of start off as the joke. Like, I loved all the humor with him robbing the convenience store, and then their first fight, Miles is just like having such an easy time beating him up and kind of outsmarting him. And then over the course of the film, he develops into this menacing
Hmm.
villain. Like, he develops such mastery
Yeah,
over
he's
his
kind of
powers.
scary by the end, but he is, and even Gwen even like outright refers to him as a villain of the week at the
Yeah.
beginning because that's she's not thinking too much of it. But yeah, he really works, and it's like you're worried at the end. It's like, how are they going to stop this guy? He's gotten so much power, and I think it didn't bother me, but I think it is a fair criticism of the movie that he completely disappears for the second half. He's
Hmm.
once they leave Moonbatten, the Spider Society and Miguel O'Hara take center stage away from the Spot. But I'm okay with it because it's part one of a two-parter. We're gonna get plenty of him in the next one, I'm sure.
Yes, that's
Um,
true.
but speaking of Spider Society, we need to talk about Hobie,
Hobie.
Spider Punk, voiced by Daniel Kaluuya. Um, when I mentioned earlier things that I'm not creative to even think about, this dude, he hates the system so much that they chose to animate different parts of his body at different frame rates. Like, I I would never think to do that.
Yeah, I didn't even really pick up on that. I
No,
just
you
noticed
wouldn't.
that. Yeah, I
Your
just noticed that like
mind
different.
knows it's off.
Yeah,
Like his rhythm is off, but you don't know why. And he's so
right.
cool. I
Hmm.
love his line too when he takes his mask off and Miles is like, "How are you even cooler under the mask?" It's like, I was just cool the whole time.
Yeah. He's got such a cool aesthetic too. Like,
Hmm.
I love how, just like, yeah, like you were saying, his body is just so differently animated with
Hmm.
with it feels like the Sex Pistols. It feels like
Yes.
angry, and it feels very punk.
Hmm.
And I like that. That was one of my few complaints about this movie
Oh,
too
okay.
with Hobie. This is that. What I meant by it is that his accent is so good that I have difficulty understanding it.
Well,
Like, it's great.
rewatching, rewatch
Oh
with
yeah,
subtitles when you see it at home. You'll get it
it's
all.
great, but that
But
it'll be like, I need to have like two lines of his in a row, so that
mhm.
way I can miss the first one and pick up
Uh-huh.
the second one, because I'm used to it now. But
Yeah.
then it's like, it's right back to it. But I thought otherwise it was great. But yeah, I just need to watch
Hmm.
subtitles with his scenes.
Yeah, one interesting note about his character, his costume design. Apparently, the laces he has on his boots. So it's the canon event that a captain close to Spider-Man dies, and like Miles kind of looks at him. He's like, "What of it?" Apparently, though, the color of lace he was wearing apparently indicates that that person has killed a police officer. So the theory going around now is that he killed his Captain Stacy. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but um, you know, costume design is a pretty intentional art form, so I imagine we're meant to at least think about that, and it makes sense with his personality, you know. And
Yeah, seriously, I didn't pick up on that at all.
I didn't either. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know to look for that. But on rewatch, one thing about him that does become abundantly clear is how much he's looking out for Miles from the jump. Like he's like, why do you want to be part of this group anyway? Like, what's the big deal? And Miles like, I want to watch. Like, make your own watch. He's because he knows what Miguel's thing is and what will happen to Miles' dad, and he's trying to get Miles to go home. And you can kind of pick up on that in his behavior the entire way. And there's when they come to take him to HQ, Hobie is like, my boy Miles, he doesn't want to go to HQ. And he's like, I'm invited, let's go. And he's there's so many little things in there that are just hinting towards. And it seems like he's only part of the organization to like help keep Gwen safe because they have some sort of thing going. You know, it's set up like he's going to be a romantic rival for Miles, but that's not really the vibe I get when we meet him. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole preamble to him, it does set him up like that, but once you get to know him and see him, it's like you're just about fighting the system. Like that's your whole identity is just rebellion and fighting the machine. Like you're not a cog, you're your own thing. And I appreciate too, to kind of echo off of your point, like when Miles starts to escape and stuff, he just kind of calls it quits, Hobie, and just leaves. He's just like, I'm not in this anymore. I quit. Goodbye. So
he also taught him the technique to get out of the electric barrier with his hands.
Right. Oh wow, yeah, that's
because
true.
he fucking knew. He fucking knew what they were going to do to him, and he gave him the tools to escape.
Yeah, no, he was a homie. Go Hobie.
Yep. Hobie the homie. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess even like maybe he and Gwen have like some sort of fling that maybe because Miles and Gwen feel like they're a romance. They keep calling each other best friends throughout the movie. But Miles has a lot of hand-drawn pictures of her in his little sketchbook for her being his best friend.
Yes. Yeah, something about that.
No, they're crushing. They're crushing a little bit.
Yeah. Feels familiar.
Yeah. You could also I could see it that Hobie, like, because she says she crashes at his place a lot. Like, he could be gay. I don't know.
I mean, he's just a punk. He's just a punk kid. Like, he's a rocker. Like, I'm sure he just has shows and shit. And it's like, yeah, come on over. We're chilling.
Yeah. But we haven't really talked about our protagonist all that much. Let's talk about Miles's story. He is our protagonist once again, and I really enjoyed him this time around. You can really feel how much he misses his friends from across the multiverse, and you get a sense of the isolation that he's feeling because when he started being Spider-Man, he had all these other spider people around him to sort of share the experience with, and they're gone. And he feels like he can't share that he's Spider-Man with his parents, so that alienates him from them even more. And so that's sort of his like want at the beginning of this movie, right? He wants to be part of the team again, and then by the end, he's decided he's fine doing his own thing, and that if being part of this bigger organization means protecting the canon at the expense of the people he loves, like, it isn't worth it. You know, I thought that was a great character arc for him for this middle chapter, especially.
Yeah, he's amazing. And I always love seeing a character on screen with a name that's very similar to mine.
Yeah.
So love it. Off the bat, just love his character. But yeah, I think as a character arc, it was pretty powerful because he is kind of sandwiched. Like you got Gwen's, she's kind of got that whole intro sequence, and we get some good development around her. But yeah, like we get to see Miles and his life here, kind of grappling with the role of Spider-Man, and then trying to balance that with his own personal life with his family. And yeah, like you said, he's got this secret that he doesn't know how to tell his parents. He's been lying to them for a long time about it, and he doesn't know how they're going to respond. And I think that there is a great deal of relatability in that for a lot of teens and a lot of people in general. Like, you know, when you're growing up, it could be hard to tell your parents about some things, like I like a girl or I like a boy, or hey, my friends brought a joint to the party and I smoked. Like, how do you broach that conversation with your parents sometimes? Do
Yeah.
you try and have
Hmm.
that conversation too? Is this worth it? Is this something that they need to know? So I felt like as a protagonist, he is very relatable for everybody.
Yes, I agree. And I did like, while these scenes are pretty much all from his perspective, both of his parents get a lot of good material here too. And I think it uh takes its time to really get their perspective on what's going on, because it's he's not the same person anymore. He's not a little kid. He's growing up and changing, and they don't really understand what's going on with him, and that hurts them. And like, you really feel for his dad when
Hmm.
he's like late to the party, and we know he's trying his best to get there, and he's just getting caught up because he's Spider-Man. But it's like, because he doesn't feel safe communicating that with his parents, they don't understand what's going on, so they think he's just acting out and being a dick. And it's and these are the things that make me feel like this part of the movie cannot really be trimmed, especially because the canon event that Miguel says needs to happen is that Miles's dad gets killed, uh trying to save a kid fighting the
Hmm.
Spot. And Miles's main goal going into film 3 is about saving his dad from the Spot. So I think we really needed all of these moments with the three of them together, and their different dynamics, to really set that up for a proper emotional payoff next time around.
Yeah. Well, and I think next time it's going to be interesting too, because to we realize towards the end of the film that Miles is in the wrong universe because
Hmm.
he went to the universe that the spider came from. So, it's a different universe where his dad's dead and he's the Prowler with his uncle. And I forget his uncle's name, but
Aaron.
Aaron, thank you. So
Hmm.
it's Prowler Morales and Aaron Morales doing whatever they want, really, in this
Crime,
kind of more crime heavy Brooklyn.
because there's no
And
Spider-Man in this
yeah, there's
universe.
no Spider-Man to stop all this tremendous amount of crime.
Hmm.
But I think that that's going to kind of put this that'll be an interesting dynamic as uncle slash father and son juxtaposed against Miles and his cop father here in our
Hmm.
universe. You'll have this kind of unique dichotomy of what could have been and what is here. But kind of going back to the parents too, because I do think that the parents had a lot to work with here, and I
Hmm.
think his parents, it feels like, yeah, they're having trouble letting go of him and letting him kind of spread his wings, like they were
Yeah.
saying, and kind of fly away and do his own things. But I think the in the political landscape of America today, I think there's a decent amount of inequality,
Hmm.
toxicity, and prejudice. Um, and his parents know that.
Yeah.
And I think that they're really trying to shield him from getting hurt by that. And I
Hmm.
think that's kind of one of the messages of this movie, is that sometimes growing up means letting go and allowing your loved one to get hurt.
Mm.
And once you get hurt, that's kind of just part of living. That's just part of growing up. You take a few hits and you get back up, and then you just keep walking forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought, yeah, the parents had a very good part in this film.
Hmm. And he does get hurt. He gets betrayed by his closest friends, both Peter and Gwen.
Yes.
Wrong him pretty severely in this movie. And I want to talk about Gwen a little bit, because this is Miles's movie first and foremost, but the movie story is very much bookended by these Gwen Stacy sections. We start the movie off with her, and we're with her for like 15 minutes, and in her head, getting her narration, and it's wonderful as she gets to fight the like Leonardo da Vinci style vulture, which is really
Yeah, so
fun fight
cool.
scene. But it's I think this bookending method with Gwen really helps to give the film that closure that it might not have had if that wasn't there. Because we start and end with her, so it kind of feels like we're going full circle, with her point
Hmm.
of view. And it gives us a lot of development with her. She's in the first movie. She's probably like the third main character, but she's in it a lot less than she's in this one. That first movie is very much about Miles and Peter B. Parker. And in this one, Peter B. Parker is in it less too. He sort of takes a back seat.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he gets some good stuff too. He has that really great scene with Miles. he's also the only spider person who picks up that like Miles is gonna double back. I didn't notice it at first, but when they're all chasing him up that elevator, it kind of does a close up on Peter, and he has like a moment of realization and stops and turns around just silently. Um, and I I love this scene with his baby. It's like just squeeze the baby. It's so joyful, and
All the
he
baby stuff, so funny.
it's
Yeah.
so cute. And he's I also like that he's not trying to get Miles trapped. He doesn't know they're tracking him, and he's just like actually trying to talk him down because he thinks it's the right thing. But yeah, I really felt like these bookend chapters with Gwen were essential for the film, and you get a lot of closure with her arc with her dad, because we start with that and we end with that. And then she goes off to save the day at the
Yeah.
end. Yeah.
Oh,
But
well, yeah, I just loved Gwen's character development in this film, and
mhm.
yeah, I think we got to talk about it because people have been talking about it.
Yes.
Gwen's character being transcoded in
Mhm.
this movie, and when I first saw those headlines, I was like, I don't see that. But once I started reading the comments on it
Mhm.
and what people are pointing out, like the color scheme in her
Yeah.
universe and like how it resembles a lot of like the trans colors on
Mhm.
the flag,
Right.
um,
And for our viewers who
hard to
don't
click.
know what we mean, transcoded is just, or gay coded, it's just written in a way that is meant to evoke thoughts of, oh, this person might be transgender or this person might be gay, queer coded, transcoded, etc. So yeah. I was the same as you. I didn't initially see it at first because I'm just a like dumb cishet dude and don't pick up on that stuff right
Me
away.
too.
But yeah, it's especially in that scene when she's talking to her dad at the end. I there's screenshots of it on Twitter now, and I'm like, it's not very subtle. The entire fucking frame is the 3 trans pride flag colors, and her hair is like broken down into those 3 colors too in distinct sections.
Wow.
She has a protect trans kids poster in her room. Like it's all there, but again, it's coding. It's not explicit. But the important thing is that trans viewers are noticing it and they're feeling seen by this character. And they're pointing to her arc. All of this stuff aside, they're pointing to it's like, that's how I feel. And that is good that they're being
Yeah,
showcased, seen,
that's
you know?
powerful. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we need that kind of representation and that diversity on screen, and even just that messaging in general. And
Yeah.
yeah, you have a note here about how her dad reacted
Mm-hmm.
to when she revealed who she was as
Right.
Spider Woman.
Yes. Because
Standing there.
yeah, because she basically, like, if you think about it, like, she's hiding something from her dad and she comes out as Spider Woman and he pulls a gun on her. He reacts with violence. And that is the reality for a lot of trans youth in the world. And even when it's not the reality, that is a fear that a lot of, I think anyone who's coming out has, that their parents might react violently or cruelly. And a big part of her arc is that when she comes back, he accepts her and their relationship is saved because of that. And she also has, and Miles is struggling with the same thing. It's like, does he come out to his parents as Spider-Man? And she tells him not to do it because she just did it. And it went really, really bad for her. So
Mm-hmm.
it's, and it doesn't need to be made explicit. I understand the desire for that explicit representation. I don't think they're going to do it in this movie, especially in the current climate, unfortunately. But the coding is there, and it's wonderful that people are feeling seen.
Yeah, and I think the coding works pretty well
Mm-hmm.
overall. Because ultimately, yeah, when you think about Spider-Man revealing his identity or any superhero revealing their identity, it is that coming out moment
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of people
Remember
in the
X-Men 2 when it's like literally just when Bobby comes out to his parents as a mutant and
oh
Iceman,
right.
and his mom is like, "Have you tried not being a mutant?" Like it's very on the nose, like coming out as gay. That
Yeah. Well, and I mean, yeah, we've always
was
used
20 years ago that movie came out.
gosh. Yeah, that's right. But I mean, yeah, I feel like superhero media has been used pretty consistently as like yeah, with the X-Men,
Mm-hmm.
to embody current events,
Mm-hmm.
political movements.
Social
You know,
commentary. It's a very
social commentary.
accessible way to
Yeah.
communicate social commentary. It's like,
Well, yeah. I mean, Magneto and Professor X. You know, it's Malcolm X and Martin Luther King.
mhm,
You know, it's like you got these two competing viewpoints there. But yeah, it's like any superhero coming out and revealing their identity. That's them literally coming out and
yeah,
revealing this big secret. So I think in this context of this movie, I agree. I don't think that they're going to make her explicitly say I'm trans. We could be
mhm,
wrong.
no, yeah,
That could happen still. I think at the same time, I don't think it needs to happen
mhm,
because I think you can appease your cis heads and the people
yeah,
that want that representation on
yes.
screen.
And we should
Um,
say too, we have that perspective as to cishet guys. Uh,
yes,
I'm sure there are many people who are in the trans community who would very much appreciate if it was explicit, but
yes,
I think this not even symbolism. The movie is like screaming it at you, but you know, whatever allows you to feel seen by this character, if you're a trans girl or a cis girl, like I'm sure it's there for you. Like she's just a
yeah.
girl. Like, it's just a girl. But yeah, on that note, I want to talk about their character arcs throughout this movie, and their arcs are why I feel that the movie feels complete despite the plot being unresolved, because both of them
Hmm.
have what I consider to be pretty complete character arcs. Miles realizes that he doesn't need to be part of this bigger team to be a good Spider-Man. He also comes out to his mom as Spider-Man. Wrong mom, but he didn't know that. He grew emotionally enough to where he knew he needed to do that, right? And then Gwen stops running from her problems with her dad and confronts him. And then she forms her own band. You know, she stops looking to join a band because they aren't the right fit. And she forms a band of her own, gets a bunch of characters back from the first movie that we didn't see in this one, and some
Hmm.
that we met and re-met in this one as well. Um, and she's making more of an effort to do the right thing rather than just what Miguel says. And I wanted to read this note from Brendan Hodges of
Okay.
nextbestpicture.com about their arcs. So two things for Miles. First, he self-actualizes and embraces he'll be okay and strong regardless of how he feels, regardless of how much he feels like part of something greater, resolving what his mom said on the rooftop at the beginning. Secondly, this new emotional center allows him to finally open up to his mom about his identity. Huge step built over the both movies. Happens to the wrong mom, but it doesn't change the growth itself. For Gwen, she abandons the group she joined after fleeing the crisis with her dad. After revealing her identity, she ran from the problem instead of facing it head on. Ultimately, Gwen recognizes she should leave Miguel's spider people and be willing to stand alone and make her own choices. And at the same time, realizes she also needs to confront her dad. She does with the movie ending in a kind of emotional catharsis for both her and Miles. So I think that is why this works as a not standalone, but you know, you get closure and the plot. It's one of my favorite cliffhangers ever. I think it's
It's
so
really
good.
good. Well, I mean, yeah, comparative like some of these other cliffhangers for other movies, I think it does a fantastic job of building up to an emotional point, building that tension,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got everything set up perfectly for your next movie. All the pins are in the right place, all the pieces. So now you just got to kind of strike them all down and yeah, just nail it on this
Mm-hmm.
final film. But I think this is a really great cliffhanger
Yeah.
too.
Let's talk about it a little bit. When did you clock that he was in the wrong universe?
Definitely a little later than I would like to admit. It was when Gwen's starting to sneak around the windows, like
Mm,
right outside his apartment. It's like that doesn't look right, with the
yeah.
light and everything. Like
Well, in the
something's not
rain
right here.
too.
Hmm.
It's
Well,
raining where Miles is and not where Gwen is, which is an
hmm
indication that I missed the first time. Just because, like a good, it's kind of like the Luke Skywalker on Crate thing. It's like it's obvious that he's not really there because the movie is giving you so many hints that he's not there, but you're swept up in the emotion of the moment and you don't notice those things until
yeah.
rewatch. And it was like that for this. I clocked it when embarrassing, but when he reveals himself as Spider-Man and his mom just looks at him and is like, "What?"
Hmm.
I was like, oh no, dude, no. They're in the wrong place,
Oh,
dude.
oh no.
But on rewatch too, as soon as he enters his room, if you hadn't picked up on it, you should, because the room is like dirtier and it doesn't look like his room at all. And
Hmm.
and then they start mentioning how he's like he changed his haircut and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Um, but I think it's a really great escalation and slow burn of a twist, especially for kids who we got to remember are the primary audience for this. Like, I can imagine like a little 10-year-old's mind being fucking exploded when they realize he's in the wrong universe, right? And
Yeah.
alternate Miles being the Prowler was a great secondary reveal too.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, because it is like this whole universe of what could have been
Mm-hmm.
if
And,
that spider, or if Miles had not been bitten by that spider,
mhm.
or just a world without Spider-Man. And
Right.
I think, I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, well, I don't think the world would be that much different. But then again, I don't live in a superhero universe, so
Yeah.
there's probably more crime there than there is here.
Right.
And
Well, and it's
so,
not even necessarily, maybe there isn't more crime. Maybe it's just these specific people's lives were impacted in a much worse way. And this
sure.
area
Hmm.
of Brooklyn was impacted without Spider-Man's presence. But just Gwen's narration, her sort of like beginning of her redemption, combined with the music, they really work together to build up this like massive sense of excitement. And then we get the reveal of characters that we remember from the first movie that we didn't get this time. Spider-Man Noir, Nicolas Cage's character, Peter Porker, John Mulaney's character are both there.
Peter Porker.
And then Penny Parker, the mech suit Spider-Woman,
Right.
and
Yes.
the like Avatar one from this one, as well as Spider-Punk are all there. And they're going to pick up Peter because he's like, okay, yeah, we fucked up. We got to make it right, you know? And yeah, it's her new band. She couldn't find a band that worked, so she made her own. This is it. They're gonna do the right thing now. It's cool. And
Yeah.
she has the like new watch from Spider Punk. It's great. It's so fucking good. I'm one. Okay, this is gonna sound like an unfavorable comparison because most
Okay.
people don't like this cliffhanger, but I love Halo 2's cliffhanger. I think it's so fucking sick, you know? It's like
Hmm.
corny as hell, but remember like Chief comes out of slip space on that giant ship and he's like, "What are you doing on that ship?" He's finishing this fight. The music
Yeah.
kicks in. It's that does not have as much emotional closure in that game as this movie does, but it left me with a similar feeling of like, let's go. Let's go.
Oh
Let's get to
yeah.
the next one. It's like I want to see what happens now. Um
Oh, I totally get that. I think I'd compare this, yeah, to like the Infinity War and Endgame
mhm,
uh cliffhanger, because the last thing that happens in Infinity War is everyone gets evaporated. You
mhm.
know, they get snapped away by Thanos, and then it just leaves the audience with this feeling of dread of like, oh,
Yes.
we lost. And now you're like, how are they going to come back from this? What's going to
Mhm.
happen next? And you have to wait a whole year for that
Yep.
anticipation to build. And I mean, this one is not as bleak of an ending,
Mhm.
obviously. It's
Yeah.
much, it ends on kind of a bit of a higher note,
It's
I
a
would say,
positive
than,
note. Yeah.
yeah, than half the universe being evaporated. This one is more, oh, Miles is in danger and the Spot's a villain and he's out there, but at least we got the band back together.
Mhm.
So, I think,
Yeah. They're like, we're gonna make it right, was the tone of this ending. Whereas the
yes,
tone of
yes.
Infinity War is like, oh, it's very bleak. But and I think this is a better film than Infinity War. I will say that. But I also you comparing it to Infinity War, I think is appropriate because that film, by structuring itself in a way where Thanos is the protagonist of it, and the Avengers, despite being the heroes, are the antagonist. Thanos has
Mhm.
his goal, right? Get the Infinity Stones, put them on the glove, wipe out life. He accomplishes that goal fully in the movie. So we get a sense of like really upsetting closure in that as well. So I think
Yeah.
that was a pretty good comparison. And you just reminded me too, just Gwen's narration. At the beginning of the movie, she's talking, her narration is like, I hurt him, Miles. And it kind of makes you think, oh, they must have seen each other in between and she did something to him. But the end of the movie and the whole story we've seen recontextualizes it. That narration is happening now at the end. It's the first part
Oh
of her
yeah.
monologue because she hurts him during this movie. And I don't know. It's just a cool little trick of the narrative, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think it's also satisfying as an ending because it sets up things nicely for the next movie, like
Mm-hmm.
moving on to Beyond the Spider-Verse here.
Yes.
Because in my head, what we got now, moving into the next one, we have the bands back together. They're ready for the team up. They're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have these three antagonistic plot lines. You
Yes.
have the Spot, which is kind of the big baddie, and then you have Miguel
Mm-hmm.
with the Spider Verse people. So that I'm sure is going to get very clusterfucky. And then you have the Prowler and slash Miles Morales
Mm-hmm.
in Universe 42 or whatever it was. And seeing how that's going to play out because obviously he wants there's something that's going to happen there between him and our Miles.
Mm-hmm.
So, you just got these three different things ready to wrap up with these three different antagonists, and you still got his family, you still got the sexual tension, you still got all the other spider people
Mm-hmm.
to check out and have stuff with. So you just got plenty of ammo, plenty of road to
Oh
plenty of
yeah.
baseline to run down. So there's I'm excited for the next one.
Me too.
But
What do you have predictions wise? What do you think is going to go down? And either Lord or Miller has said that Beyond the Spider-Verse for them is the end. They envision this as a trilogy, and that's as much as they can like do.
good, yeah.
And I think I want to see Miles Morales again. I want to see Spider-Gwen again. I don't want to see these versions of them again, though. I like the idea that this is just a trilogy. We can still do that. We can still have just a nice little series of
Yep.
movies. It's something, and I really hope we get a sense of finality in part 3. But predictions, what do you got?
The main things that I predict slash hope for, I don't know if it's going to go this way, but just based on Miles's character in this
Mm-hmm.
movie and him having the arc and our discussion today about the Miguel's theory about the universe, the canon theory,
Mm-hmm.
I hope and my prediction is that he'll be able to save his family and it won't completely destroy the universe
Okay.
and show that anyone can have the heroism of Spider-Man and that trauma or loss isn't necessarily an inherent trait or a
Mm-hmm.
necessity to be Spider-Man or to be a hero for that matter.
Yeah.
That's kind of my main prediction. I literally cannot predict anything else that's going to come. But what about you? What are your predictions?
Yeah, my main prediction, and I could be totally misreading Miguel's character here, but I think he's gonna come around by the midpoint of the film. I think this one was kind of structured as it was more Spot heavy in the first half, and then Miguel heavy in the second half. I think that's gonna flip in part 3, and our new like band of rebel spider people will be dealing with the Miguel's squad, and then Miguel will see the error of his ways and maybe like team up to help save Miles's dad from the Spot, or he's the real villain. I don't know. We'll see.
Mm,
But and it's a kids movie, so I predict it will be at least a happy-ish ending. I hope Gwen and Miles, become a couple. They're cute. I want the best for them. And I had another one, but I forgot. Oh, and I hope they don't abandon like Dark Universe Miles and his family. Yeah, I hope.
yeah, just leave him to nothing.
I'm sure they won't. That would be pretty pretty bleak. But
Yeah, at least
yeah,
I hope that they give them the resources to
yes.
fix their universe or at
Mm-hmm.
least help clean up something about it. So maybe
Right.
that's part of the part of the next movie is them helping out the
Mm-hmm.
Prowler and Miles Morales
Yeah.
in Universe 42.
And one more thing that I just thought of, I think the Spider Society as it exists will be over.
Hmm.
Because their mission is deemed either wrong or not relevant. I think they'll still be able to like travel and see each other, but I do think in a lot of ways people criticize Tom Holland's Spider-Man of like missing the point of the character by being too ingrained in the Avengers and working with Tony Stark. I think the Spider Society is kind of doing the same thing. They're not friendly neighborhood Spider-Man anymore when they're dealing with multiversal problems and like balancing an interdimensional canon. And I think Lord Miller and team are doing that intentionally. That because they're very much painting this organization as not heroic in this movie, and I think part of the arc of the third one will be that this thing needs to end.
Yeah,
So
well, I can't help myself but think of the Citadel of Ricks from Rick and Morty,
yeah, that too.
where just a whole bunch of like-minded, individualistic people come together to form a society where all of a sudden they're raked again. There's socioeconomic statuses in play, and it's like, well, this defeats the whole purpose of being a Rick or a
Yeah.
Morty.
Wasn't the line like you were so terrified of governments that you went and made your own or something?
Something like that, yeah. I don't know.
I wonder if Rick and Morty's still good. I haven't watched it in a long time, but
yeah, I'll get caught up at some point. But yeah, looking forward to the next Spider-Man verse movie.
Any final thoughts before
Nope,
we
that's
transition
it.
over?
All right. We can transition to our last segment of the episode where we talk about other stuff we've been doing, watching, reading, playing, you name it. Just other kinds of media. Dylan, what have you been up to?
All right. So I finished Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Wow.
Incredible game. And obviously there's loads more to do in it, but I finished the main campaign and a ton of the side quests. Loved it. Still reading House of Leaves.
Nice.
I'm probably going to be reading it for a long time. It takes a minute to read.
Yeah. It'll take you a long time for sure.
Yeah. I have also been playing Diablo 4, which has been so much fun. It's so slick and the story is very cool and dark. I love it. And
nice.
Last night I rewatched Raiders of the Lost Ark in prep for both the new movie and our rewind that we're going to do about it. So be looking out for that by the end of the month. It'll be out sometime before the new movie comes out, audience members. What about you, Niles?
So I have not yet finished Tears of the Kingdom. I got it a little later than you, but I've been playing it. I've got through 2 of the regional phenomena events. So that was just fun. And it's just such a blast.
And what was the other one you've done?
I've done Wind and the Zora's Domain.
Okay.
That one.
Yeah.
So I still got the other 2 to go. But I'm loving it. Beautiful game. The imagination that's at play with just the development of it is amazing. I love all the new abilities. The building is the hardest part for me, but I'm getting there. With it too. It takes some time to get used to.
Have you gotten the auto build ability yet?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
That thing. Yeah, I still need to figure out exactly what I'm doing sometimes.
Yeah, there's some people who make the most absurd things in that night.
Oh yeah. I've seen like the little like death cruncher things, like you put them in a cage and it just kills them instantly. It's like, okay, I need to figure out how to build that. That looks like fun. I've also started reading this book called American Gods by Neil Gaiman. Pretty fun so far. Cool. I'm just about like 2 chapters in, so still working my way through it. Getting a feel for what it's about, but it's just very rich and earnest, I would say. I've always got a feel good show in rotation, and The Office was starting to wear me down again, so cycled in Parks and Rec.
Okay.
Just love getting back on that. And I started watching I Think You Should Leave, that Tim Robinson show.
Yeah, I always see clips of that.
Me too. Yeah, I tried to watch it like probably like a year or 2 ago, and just like the humor felt way too crude on the first season.
Okay.
And revisiting it, I did see like the moments where I was like, yeah, that's way too crude for my sense of humor, but there's some gems in there. Not all the sketches are amazing, but there's some really good ones that are.
That's where that we're all trying to find the guy who did this meme came from. That's one of the only sketches I've seen. It's so funny.
Oh, it's so funny. Or the one where he's like, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about any of it.
I need to watch that. What is it on?
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I can't keep watching it because Netflix does the subscribe or like the one household thing now, and I use my brother's. So it kind of kicked us off, and it's like, now I gotta pay for Netflix. Are you serious?
Oh my god, we as audience members fucked up so bad. New account signups for Netflix went up 107% this month, and it's like, guys, you were supposed to cancel, not get another one. You're supposed to hurt them so they know not to do this shit again. Now
Damn
they're
it,
all gonna
guys.
do it. They're all gonna do this now.
Yeah. Now the trend is gonna start again.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I'm all caught up, at least with the American dub release of Attack on Titan.
Yep.
It's so amazing. That the season 4 just
It's so good.
fucking fucks, man. It is so good.
Very articulate, Niles. It fucking fucks.
Yeah, that's what I'm known for, my articulate nature. But yeah, it is just phenomenal. Aaron's a fucking fascist, but that's
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who've been watching since 2013 or whenever it's first started airing have very strong opinions about Aaron, and
Mm-hmm.
I won't spoil too much about it. So
Well, I remember when you were first starting and you're like, Aaron sucks. I'm like, oh, you have no idea, man. Like, he's awful.
This guy's a piece of shit. God damn.
It's terrible. Well, yeah, that's our episode for this week. We will be back next week for The Flash, and then we're back on our normal schedule. So next week will be The Flash, and then 2 weeks from then will be Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This summer is so stacked with massive releases.
Yeah.
And we're going to be putting out a rewind on Raiders of the Lost Ark in prep for Dial of Destiny. And then, oh my God, we got Mission Impossible coming up, Oppenheimer, Barbie. I don't know what we're going to do about Oppenheimer and Barbie. They come out the same day. We'll have to figure something out for that.
Maybe a big old double episode. Who knows?
That could be fun.
That might be too much, but yeah, we could get into it. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening. We love making this podcast and talking about movies and entertainment stuff. So if you like this podcast, please leave a review or share it with your friends.
Yeah.
Wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yep. Where can people find you online, Niles?
You can follow me on Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. Dylan, what about you?
Find me on Twitter at D-Day Movies, on Instagram at DylanD1026, on YouTube at D-Day Movies. I actually started writing a new video last week, so finally there will be something new there in the next 2 months probably. And on Twitch at D-Day_movies. And I think that's it. Oh, you can also find our second channel with spoiler-free sections of the episode and videos like our Rewind series at Play Pause Rewind Videos. All of that is linked in the description below. Like on YouTube, subscribe, share with a friend, leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. And we'll see you guys next week for The Flash. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.